Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Liberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. On today's episode, I am so thrilled to welcome Ellie Holbert, who is one of my clients and has accomplished so much in the last 6 or 7 months since she started her business. And I just wanted to bring her on for her to share what the ups and downs and what she's experienced deciding to launch a consulting business, launching a consulting business, acquiring her first set of clients, kind of reshifting what she's offering along the way, and all of the lessons learned. And she's got some superpowers that I want to share with you, because I think sometimes we think it's what we'll share with you here, I think, on this episode, you may not think is possible. And I wanted Ellie to come on and share with us a few examples of what is possible in terms of how to get your foot in the door with decision makers, people that you think might be completely out of your reach. Ellie has a superpower of doing this, and she's graciously agreed to come on the episode and share so much of her learnings with us here today. So, Ellie, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melisa. I'm so excited to be speaking with you today. I am Ellie Holbert. I'm an independent consultant and a coach, and I work with human resources leaders to assess the health and effectiveness of their teams. I created a framework that's grounded in academic research and industry best practices to diagnose root causes of misalignment and underperformance. And I work with leaders in the people and culture space to create team architecture, cultural norms, and enable high performance for dispersed teams. So if you're a people and culture leader struggling with organizational health, team effectiveness, I'd love to hear from you. And I'm also a happy, proud, well-caffeinated mom to a busy toddler and a novice gardener and a lover of history and reading.
Amazing. And your daughter is a little bit over a year, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So you started this business basically at the same time that you started off as a parent. And I think there's so many parallels, but also those are two big endeavors at the same time, and you've been doing them both so beautifully.
Thank you so much. Thank you. The parallels are fascinating. I would not have expected it, but it's been a beautiful start to motherhood and my ownership of a business.
Yes, amazing. Okay, let's dive in. Tell us a little bit of background. Tell us, why did you decide to become an independent consultant, Ellie, and maybe a little bit of what you were doing before?
Yes, I have always wanted to become an entrepreneur of some kind, but I was not exactly sure what. And I imagined that would come after retiring from a long corporate career. I previously was doing organizational effectiveness consulting. So I've been doing this work for a while, but in a different capacity. But then, as we mentioned, I welcomed my daughter into the world, and that was actually the catalyst for starting my business. So without traumatizing your listeners, I had a long labor. I was in labor for 60 hours, 60.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a beautiful, positive experience. And I felt like I saw what I was truly capable of for the first time in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. And afterwards, I was speaking to a friend of mine. Her name is McLean Robbins, who you know, Melisa. She runs an amazing luxury travel design company. And we were talking about returning to work. And she asked me, have you considered being an independent consultant? You can set your own hours, choose the work you do, and you often earn more than you would in a corporate world. And I will always remember that conversation as what really started this for me. She shared your podcast with me, and I spent July onward binging on nearly every episode of your podcast. And I have so many good memories of taking my daughter for long walks on maternity leave, listening to your episodes, and just dreaming about a life where I could have more time with my family and still maintain financial independence. So I spent my maternity leave dreaming up this business, a business where I do the highest impact, most meaningful consulting work I've gotten to do. And what I love more than anything is creating environments where safety and belonging are secured so that others are set up for success, to do their best work, be their boldest selves. And that's what led to the birth of my consultancy, Impact Advisory Services.
Oh my gosh, so good. Those little breadcrumbs, right? You had a conversation with McLean, who's been on this podcast also,
Yeah.
when she was still with MBO Partners, and now has her own business. That she had both both at the time. Now she's working on the travel side, and for you to have that conversation and then listen to some podcasts and start believing in yourself and what was possible and to take the leap.
Absolutely.
So amazing.
Thank
Tell
you.
us a little bit about your vision. So you've described to us what you do as a consultant. Tell us what your vision is for the business in the next
Absolutely.
several years.
In terms of my vision for the business, I do plan to stay small, just myself, for at least the next 5, maybe 8 years. So, in terms of growth, headcount is not my priority. I would like to stay independent. My priority for this business is really to make every moment away from my family as meaningful as possible. So, I hope to continue partnering with leaders in the people and culture space who are struggling with engagement and performance in culture. I find that work incredibly rewarding. I also hope to do more and more executive coaching with time, because I do find that to be just incredible, impactful work. And then in terms of my vision for the business around revenue, I do hope to build up to a 7-figure business within the 5-year mark.
Yeah, amazing. And you're off to such a strong start.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. What does the journey look like so far? At the time that we're recording this, it's June. So I think you've been at this for a little over 6 months officially.
It's been a little less. It's been 16 weeks.
16 weeks, Ellie. What is happening?
It's been 4 months.
Yeah, it's been 4 months. Okay, I've added a few to your tenure already. Okay, so in the last 16 weeks, give us a picture of what you've been able to accomplish and what this has looked like.
Sure. Well, it has been a roller coaster right from the very beginning. I know that you remember that well from our first conversation. So before I left my business, I had been working on these concepts while I was on maternity leave, really not sure when I would take the plunge. I thought maybe it might be a few years away. But I decided to secure a multi-month public sector contract in order to take my launch. I thought that, at the time, from what we knew then, that would have been a very reliable plan. And an opportunity did come my way to do just that. So I did leave my company. And I should mention, I actually really loved my corporate job. I loved the work. The people were incredible. It was a great company. But I just knew that entrepreneurship was the right path for me. So I left. 2 weeks later, less than 2 weeks later, that contract was unexpectedly canceled because of changes occurring within the federal government. And at the time, my husband, we were concerned he might be impacted as well. So, in terms of how to start a business, that was incredibly stressful, as you can imagine. But I got moving. I did a burst of business development efforts. And thankfully, I was able to secure other opportunities within a few weeks. But that experience has really stayed with me and taught me that nothing is final until you have deposited the payment, and you cannot let your foot off the gas, even when you think that you are booked solid for a while. Business development has to stay top of mind always.
I know that it was, I recall very vividly the situation that you were in. It was right when we first started working together. But at the same time, looking back now, it feels like such a gift for you to be able to have experienced that, because so many consultants hit this, it's so easy to take your foot off the gas, like you were just saying, because you're so down in the weeds of client delivery and the bowels of client delivery, and keep thinking, well, I'll get to that business development. And then weeks and months go by and you don't. And then you end up with this feast or famine cycle. Which so many of us have experienced. And for you to have that acute situation happen at the very beginning, and that lesson learned, while incredibly painful in the moment, to your point, it really, I think, is part of the strong foundation that you've set, because you know that you are your number one client. Your business is your number one client. You always have that. You're always focused on it, and making sure that you're balancing it with your other work that's so important. And I think that's one of the reasons, and we'll probably talk about the health of your pipeline. But I think that's one of the reasons why your pipeline is so healthy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I really value your perspective. At the time, you almost congratulated me as well. This is a milestone as a business owner. You're checking it right off the
Yeah.
list. And I have kept that perspective with so many other bumps in the road. So I loved the way that you framed that when it happened at the time, because it was true. It was a gift. That challenge, I got so much value out of it. Even if at the time it was stressful, it was stress worth spent.
Yeah. Yeah. A gift we didn't really want, but one
We'll
that
take it.
ended up working out. Tell us a little bit about what lessons you want to share with your fellow consultants. And I thought maybe as we're talking about this, one of the places to start is, from my vantage point, one of your strengths is getting your foot in the door with decision makers. And we're talking about in companies with names you would recognize, which sometimes I think independent consultants think that can be more challenging to get your foot in the door with larger companies who have a brand name. That maybe mid-market or even startups would be a better place because they might be more receptive to independent consultants. But from what the experience you've been able to demonstrate and hopefully share here in a moment is the opposite, which is you have an uncanny ability to get your foot in the door with decision makers at brand name corporate enterprise clients. And I would love to dive into your brain and hear more about how that works for you, maybe some of the mechanics of how you're doing it, and also the way you think about it.
Absolutely. I would be happy to share. I would start, if you don't mind me sharing, a little story from
Ah,
my college
love it.
days, which I think helps, because my mentality around this is you have to just be willing to do some crazy things and see
Mm,
what happens. So when I was in college, a group of my friends dared me to knock on the door of the home of the president of our, I think, 40,000 plus student body, the university president, not the student president. They did not think that I would do it, but I did it. And she ended up opening the door, inviting me inside her home, and we had a really nice chat in her kitchen while she cooked dinner. And although I look back with that with actually quite a bit of embarrassment at how intrusive that was, I would never do that now. It was such a memorable moment that stayed with me, that you just never know what will happen if you do something bold and unexpected. You just never know until you try it. So I really like to put myself out there with my ideal client audience. And I remember that every person I'm reaching out to, people are just people. They're just like
mm,
you and I. They might have a fancy title, but they experience fear, and they have insecurities, and they have gifts, and they have concerns. They're just like us. So I try to remember people are people. In terms of kind of tactically what this looks like, if that would be helpful to dive
yes.
into, I follow a method where I add a large number of my ideal clients on LinkedIn every single week. So I
Mm,
would say I add probably 100 to 150 people a week on LinkedIn that are leaders in the people and culture space.
mm,
Of every person that accepts the invite, I send them a note expressing my sincere appreciation for the chance to learn from them and their work. And some respond, some don't. I give it time. I respond and engage with their content that they post. I post thoughtful
mm,
comments. I like their content. Some of them will turn around and do the same. And I do that patiently for quite a
mm.
while. And then when the time seems right, where I feel like we've engaged with each other's content enough, I'll reach out and express appreciation for their contributions, and I'll express interest in their work and see if they would like to do a 15-minute call, no more, either just to get to know them, or I have actually been writing thought leadership, and I'll ask if I could interview them due to their position in a specific industry. So I've experimented with a lot of messages. Those are the two that seem to work well. I would say the message about interviews has been very interesting. I've gotten a vice president of a global life sciences company to meet with me, as well as a vice president of a healthcare company, a CEO of a life sciences company, and a vice president of a financial services company. So those are the four calls with executives of very recognizable name brands that I've had just in the last 6 weeks from that approach.
Which is amazing. I think one of the things that stands out to me so much with your approach, Ellie, is you use this word patient. so often we get too smart for ourselves in the sense of thinking like, I need an ROI for the time that I'm spending right now, and this isn't scalable, and all of these things that we say to ourselves to find another path or talk ourselves out of that path. But for you, having that patience and the belief that in the macro level, this method will work, which it has been, and not worrying about each individual person, like you were describing. I think, from my vantage point, are two of the thought processes that have really served you well as you've been executing this process.
Thank you. I think it's been very helpful as well. It also really helps to keep in mind your own expectations around outreach and how you might feel based on the response. So, for example, when I first launched my business, I reached out to people that I knew. Not
Mhm.
everyone responded, especially some people that I really thought would and would be in my corner. I had not heard back from them after a couple of pings. The defeat and sense of disappointment and surprise, negative surprise around that was very significant. But then you contrast that with my outreach strategy with my ideal client profile. I don't actually really expect anyone to get on the phone with
Mhm.
me. I'm doing all of this work and it does take a lot of time. Do I actually expect that many people to take me up on it? No, I really don't. So when someone does, that feels like such a win. And I feel
Mhm.
so fulfilled and excited and appreciative. And I think that energy really comes through in these conversations. And I think that's part of why the conversations have been really fruitful. I really enjoy myself on these calls. I'm really excited to get to connect with them. And I think people can tell. So it's a bit of an unconventional approach, but I think trying something out that's a bit different, maybe a bit more bold, where you don't actually expect it to work, might work in your favor, because then when it does, you are just delightfully surprised.
Yeah. But you're doing it. I want to maybe highlight a balance here, which is when we go after something that we assume isn't going to work and we're doing it and we're kind of forcing it, then we tend to get the result that we're not looking for. You're going out at this, like, I think at a overall or overarching perspective that this strategy will work, and then not being so attached to any individual person. And I think that's the nuance that makes it more successful for you, versus like just trying to go through a methodology or a process that you're doing to just check the box versus really believing that it will work for you.
That's a great distinction. I definitely agree. And I think that's where keeping in mind the ratios is really helpful. So for
Mm,
every, I add a huge number of people on LinkedIn and I think I have 600 unanswered invitations. A lot of people don't even respond, but it's a numbers game. And if I try this 100 times, and let's say there's only a 3% success rate,
yeah.
that's still 3%, and I believe that there will be yeses, and I'm willing to run through those no's as fast as possible to get to the
Mm,
yes, but
yeah.
also keeping in mind that having that patience, engaging with people, I'm genuinely interested in what these people have to say, that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your pipeline and some of the sprint that you went through to fill the pipeline, and some of your experience. If you're open to sharing the size of your pipeline, anything that you can share. It's always such a common question that the listeners have about how to be more effective with their pipeline, and it's been something that you didn't have experience doing this before you started your consulting business 16 weeks ago, and have had a lot of really quick success. So give us a little bit of the behind the scenes, if you will.
Sure, thank you. I would love to. And I will definitely get as specific as I can because I know when I'm listening to episodes, I really appreciate when people are a bit more specific with figures and numbers. So, my initial goal for my first year of business was to earn 1.8 times my former corporate salary. I know that's very specific. A bunch of things went into that number. 1.8x was the goal. But today, just a few months in, my pipeline is actually at 4.4 times my corporate salary. I should also mention that half of the opportunities in my pipeline do not have a monetary value assigned to them. So you could make the case that the pipeline is actually 9 times my former salary, which is way beyond what I expected. In terms of how that pipeline breaks down, I have closed 11 deals officially. I have 2 deals at the contract stage. We're just finalizing negotiations. I'm waiting to hear back on a proposal that's been submitted to a life sciences company. I have 9 opportunities I'm tracking where we are actively in discussions, and then 15 qualified leads and 23 additional leads that have just been identified. As of this morning, that's a little higher, but I haven't updated the figures. So we're a little out of date. But in terms of the totals there, that's 56 opportunities in the pipeline. So it is a 7-figure pipeline. If I won all of this work, I would not be able to complete it on my own. I would have to hire a significant number of people. So the takeaway here really is that 16 weeks ago, I lost the one contract I had. I had a pipeline of $0. It was a very scary time, but fast forward just 4 months, and I've closed contracts that total my annual corporate salary already. So I hope that gives a lot of hope that even in uncertain, scary times, there is a lot of opportunity out there, and taking consistent, imperfect
Yeah.
action over time is enough to build a really robust pipeline.
It is, I cannot underscore enough what you just said, because sometimes we listen to stories like yours and think, oh, I could never do that, or Ellie has something that gave her a head start. And we do that as a human to make ourselves feel better, obviously. But truly, Ellie, you have, you started at this, like you said, with zero. It was like a negative pipeline in some sense. You lost the contract, and we're able to start learning the skills and the mindset that then have contributed in the last 16 weeks, and the consistency of those things for you to build out a pipeline, having no sales skills. It's incredible. And to your point, leveraging, for anyone who's listening, leveraging this as an example of what is possible versus a compare and despair, is one of the reasons why we both wanted for you to come on the podcast today to share your learnings. And I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. And I
Yeah.
would love to share too that the numbers that I'm sharing, what led up to that, we can talk more about the numbers of, the
Yeah.
outreach and the calls that I've done, but those imperfect, consistent actions, I would get on calls feeling very scared. I would get on calls feeling very uncertain. I would pitch my services, or rather dig for pain points and understanding client challenges, questioning myself the entire time. So creating that pipeline does not require superhuman confidence. It does not require perfection. It doesn't even require that you feel ready to take action. You just have to do it anyways. And to build a pipeline through a lot of struggles, but a lot of persistence, has been a very positive experience. And I hope that other listeners will see that they can build a pipeline like that as well. Even if they don't feel ready, even if they don't feel like what they're doing is totally polished, that's not required to build a robust pipeline.
This is a lesson that I want to underscore, another one, which is you're pointing out something that so many consultants get stuck with. I need a good website. I need a perfect one pager. I need to have a better elevator pitch. I need to have a better understanding of what my offers are. Those things are great. And at the same time, in parallel, having conversations without any of those things being in place, knowing you can create them when you need to, and having the conversations with potential clients who are kind of in the ballpark of this would be the type of client I would want to work with. This would be the decision maker, or the stakeholder I would want to engage with, and allowing that action to help you to create the clarity was something that, number one, is something that so many consultants are not willing to do. They want to get everything polished first, which we can all relate to this mindset as a consultant. But at the same time, your willingness to be able to just go forward without having all of those things in place. And quite frankly, I think, maybe we can dive into this a little bit further, Ellie, when you started these conversations with potential clients, you had a fairly different idea in mind about how you wanted to describe yourself and what you do and what your offers were, and those evolved through the conversations. And I don't know that you might be where you're at right now, if you hadn't had those conversations. You might be still back in kind of what you had created as your hypothesis of what you wanted to offer.
Yeah.
Tell us a little more about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so true. My mentality after we began working together was that contact with the market is the only thing that counts. So before I launched my business, I was still working on it while I was working my full-time corporate job, and I had a baby. So that would look like a lot of early mornings, some late nights, a lot of weekend work, trying to build out frameworks and decks and solutions. And I I wasted a lot of time doing that work, and it felt productive. It felt necessary. Looking back, it was not necessary. What was necessary was reaching out to ideal clients and having conversations with them. So at the beginning, when I launched my business, I envisioned that my ideal client would actually be leaders of delivery teams, because when I've done team effectiveness work and leadership coaching in the past, that was who I worked with. But after working to understand my ideal client, I now understand that they are actually HR leaders, because those are the economic buyers who purchase coaching and team effectiveness support. So it's important to think about who is your economic buyer and what outcome are they purchasing, not just the method or tactics you take to deliver that outcome. What is the outcome that your economic buyer is purchasing? And that was very helpful. My outcomes that I sell are improved retention of top performers, direct revenue impacts, increased engagement. That's the world of HR. So now I understand HR, that's my ideal client. And I would say once I made that shift, that was when things really took off. So maybe I could walk you through some numbers
Yeah.
around the outreach that I've done.
Yeah, that's so helpful. To your point, your willingness to share this helps to show what the formula might look like.
Yes, absolutely. So since I launched in February, I have had a total of 115 business development phone calls. So it's a pretty significant volume. Looking back, that volume was not actually necessary if you can target your ICP earlier on, but happy to share these insights. So, in terms of initially where I was in February, less than 8% of my calls were with my ideal client profile. For June, 76% of my calls have been with my ideal client profile. And in June, I've taken a full week off and I have 33 calls on the books with my ideal clients. So that has been incredibly effective in terms of refining the message, finding the economic buyer, and finding where those potential clients are congregating. That has been key. So I have, in addition to my LinkedIn work, I've joined a really incredible community for HR leaders. It's called Troop HR. If any people in culture leaders are listening to this, check it out. It's a great community, and it's all about community support, learning, and knowledge sharing. They do have an expectation that HRpreneurs are not too salesy in that community, and it's important to respect those ground rules. So in Troop HR, I engage organically on the different forums around pain points and different topics. I'll respond meaningfully, offer to meet with people and share my insights. I also like to welcome the new joiners and offer to do a quick intro call. So that's been a very consistent source of these phone calls with my ideal clients as well. And I think having a genuine curiosity about people and their challenges, not approaching it as a sales call, but a chance to connect with someone meaningfully, has made a difference as well.
Yeah. If you can think back, Ellie, tell us a little bit about how you recall any shifts in the way you've been thinking about business development from where you started to where you are now.
I'm thinking. Yes, I think that a significant shift in how I'm thinking of business development is that I understand now it is a journey. Before, I think I expected to get on phone calls with potential clients and close a deal on that call, because when I was working on launching my business, I actually did have several calls where that is what happened. It was one phone call and we quote unquote closed an opportunity, but then unforeseen events changed things in terms of public sector work. So I did have this perception that that was realistic.
Mm.
I now understand that that is actually not very realistic, and that it likely takes a minimum of 4 phone calls to close an opportunity. And now that I understand that, when I have a phone call with someone, that first call, the pressure is off because I am
Mm.
not there to close a deal. I am not there to do any persuasion whatsoever. I just want to get to know them and understand the challenges that they are experiencing in their work. And I think
Mm.
that alleviation of pressure actually leads to a better sense of confidence and calm, which is what people are looking for when they engage external support in the first place.
Yeah. And if it's okay for me to share this, we can always delete it if it's not. But I think too, the other things that I noticed from a mindset perspective that helped to fuel you were you just start thinking about number one, what you just shared. I'm not here to pitch anything. I'm here to build a relationship and start really thinking of it as a consulting type of a process versus a sales type of a process. And as soon as you stop thinking about it as a sales process and more of a consulting process, then it's like, oh, the consulting skills kick in. I can ask a lot of questions. I can get a sense of what their challenges are and what solutions that I might propose. And it seems to kind of unlock that pressure. And then in parallel with that was thinking about yourself as a peer and a business owner and a CEO who's coming, to talk with, a potential client or, and someone who's in the industry about challenges and not that you need anything from them, but much more of a peer-to-peer type of a conversation that then allowed you, I think from my vantage point, I'm excited to hear your thoughts, allowed you to, show up differently in those conversations as well.
That's such a great point. I couldn't agree more. And when I think about how did I create that mindset,
Mm.
it took very intentional, specific steps that I would be happy to dive into. So, in the beginning, I really struggled to see myself as a peer on a lot of these phone calls. I mean, getting on a call with executives at very large life sciences companies and amazing nonprofits, I did not see myself as a peer with the person that I was speaking or to the person I was speaking to. That was a holdover from the corporate mindset
Mm.
where hierarchy is very important. And what I did was the mindset, the emotional regulation, that's very important. I also took a look at numbers. I don't know if you can tell, I love numbers, I love data. So what I did was I took engagements that I have led and I added up the value of that work. So one particular team effectiveness project, I assessed the health of this team. It was found to be not at all acceptable in terms of team health scores. I conducted an 8-week team accelerator program. At the end of those 8 weeks, we reassessed the team and the scores were near perfect in all categories. And we sustained those scores for 18 months. And in that time, we had 0%, zero regrettable turnover. We 11x'd sales, and the C suite of this large enterprise recognized this team as the top performing team in the enterprise. And when I added up the monetary value associated with all of those components, I realized that I had delivered $4.5 million in value for one team in an 18-month period. And once I really thought about the numbers of this work, that changed everything because then I
Mm.
got on these calls with decision makers and I didn't think, here I am, this random consultant taking, 30 minutes of their time. I thought, I might save this person $5 million in their role. They need to hear from me. I
Mm.
need to hear from them. So I began to see these calls as this is an opportunity for me to be of service to this person and add significant value to them. And when I felt confident in that value, I did feel like a peer. One silly tip I also have to add, I have a business owner mindset playlist on Spotify and I
Mm.
highly recommend it. You need to listen to at least one song before you get on some of these big calls
Yes.
because it can really transform your mood. I believe in any mindset strategy that works for you. For me, it's part
Yeah.
data and it's part Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. So good. It's a pregame routine.
Yep.
That's so good. But it's this concept of you've sold yourself first, right? And you're constantly thinking about the end result of what you're helping those clients, and that mantra or that thought process in advance of I could potentially help them save $5 million or generate an extra $5 million or whatever it is. It helps to erase all of that other fear and doubt that invariably happens as a human getting on a call with someone we don't know yet. And really gave you, I think, and gives you a really good guiding principle or thought plan that you've got to fuel those sales calls and those relationship building calls.
Definitely. I agree. I think too, we've talked a bit in our coaching around emotional regulation, and I think that's a very important part of this as well. So I practice mindfulness strategies. I love to meditate. That's part of what got me through that marathon of a labor. And I often, with these conversations, yes, fear, anxiety, uncertainty, all of that comes up. And I think a big differentiator is a willingness to experience and manage the discomfort that comes with being a business owner. We will experience rejection and disappointment and anxiety. We are signing up for that. But I look at those emotions as visitors that are welcome to stop by and join me at any time. I see them as old friends, if you will. I
Mhm.
don't crush through my emotions or brush them under the rug. I actually like to stop and take a moment to be present and still, and I intentionally experience the physical sensations of those emotions. So for example, disappointment, sadness, grief, I will feel a tightness in my chest. I'll feel a tightness in my throat. My nose will sting. My eyes will water. And I like to take a moment to just put a hand on my chest, put a hand on my throat. I bring attention to those physical sensations, breathe through them, and I remind myself this is survivable. I can survive a tightness in my chest. I can survive discomfort in my nose. It might sound a little out there, but emotions, we will experience really significant emotional hurdles as business owners, and we have to manage them. And I encourage listeners to find the strategies that work for them, however odd they might be, to keep your nervous system regulated, maintain, kind, compassionate perspective of your own emotions, and really care for yourself. Because I think it helps when I'm about to reach out to a leader. I know I might experience disappointment or feel embarrassment or something like that. But I remind myself, I know exactly what that feels like. I know I will survive it. However, this phone call goes, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. Which Ellie, tell me, we both grew up on farms, right? Farms
My
and
dad did.
ranches.
My dad grew
Your
up on.
dad did. Your dad. So you have I'll say it this way. You have a family history in ranching and farming, as do I. And emotions are not part of this process whatsoever. And quite frankly, I think most of the business advice that we get these days has nothing to, very little, let's say, to do with emotional regulation. But this to me is one of the reasons why you've been so successful so quickly, is the ability that you've created. And quite frankly, I think the tools and processes that you work with your own clients on, applying them to yourself and your own business, is incredibly important. When we're not willing to feel, when we build a business around trying to avoid feeling defeated or discouraged or overwhelmed or whatever, or afraid, then we end up limiting ourselves so much, versus what you've just described, creating a practice for whatever works for each one of us individually, to be able to almost welcome the old friend in, right? Not just avoid, hey, old friend, I see you. Just don't come over here to my house anymore. No, it's like, hey, come on over. You're part of this process. If you want to, if overwhelm is part of it, you're welcome in. We talked about this, I think, before, but I love that movie Inside Out. there's two of them now, one and two. And just thinking about all those emotions kind of at the helm of the process. And it's okay that anxiety might be taking over, but how do we keep going and not allow it to kind of, skew the conversations that we're having with potential clients and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think
Yeah.
that's where developing that practice, you establish a sense of trust within yourself because you know, however things unfold, you will be okay. You'll do what it takes to make yourself okay. And I have to say, I love that you brought up our family backgrounds. My
Yeah.
dad is actually the person that introduced me to mindfulness and meditation and just the general world of managing your emotions. He's changed a lot in just one generation, and this is one of his real strengths. So he's where I got a lot of these perspectives and practices from. He took me to my first meditation seminar. I think I was 12 or 13 years old. So it's been in my life for a
That's
while. And,
amazing.
when we talk about these negative emotions, the way I see it is they are inevitable. We've talked about this before. We don't actually get to avoid these things. We do not get to choose to not feel them or experience them. They will happen. So there's such an illusion of control around,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm going to avoid doing that so I don't
Yeah.
feel that negative feeling. That's just not actually how it works. And I remind myself that we only have this one life, and all of us have gifts, and there's so much value we can offer other people. And do I want to feel these feelings now and lovingly accept and manage them and still move forward and pursue my dreams, or do I want to avoid scary circumstances and then maybe way later on in my life feel even worse feelings like regret and loss of potential and fulfillment and experiences I could have had and impact I could have made? Do we want to experience that now when we can actually do something about it, or later on when nothing can be done? And I would absolutely love to feel them now because it means that I'm really trying to make a difference.
Yeah. This is another thing I would just really want to underscore as part of what's made you so successful so quickly is the, if we talk about the skills that you bring into this business, while you didn't have sales skills or business development skills, what you do have that has helped you to be so successful are the emotional regulation skills and the way that you think about it and being able to leverage that, which a lot of times it can be easy to kind of lose sight of those skills when we're doing something brand new. And for you to have not done that and to continue to embrace all of the range of emotions and to keep going is definitely part of this recipe for success. So
Thank you.
um, Ellie, let's switch gears a little bit. Tell us, if you're game to share, what is it like to work with a coach, and a little bit of the journey of why you decided to work with one, and we'll start from there.
Yes, absolutely. I'm finding my notes. So I have to say, this is not my first experience with coaching. I actually worked with a coach in the postpartum phase doing health coaching. So I joke that during my pregnancy, I overachieved my weight gain target. No regrets. It was
Love
worth
it.
it. But I worked with a registered dietitian to lose 50 pounds in 9 months. And I actually ended up losing about 60, but the first 50 was in 9 months. And it really opened my eyes to the value of coaching. I have to say, I'm also a teacher's pet, if I can admit that. I like to make a teacher happy. So if I can commit to a teacher, I know that I will put in the work to make something happen. But I was aware of the value of coaching from that experience. And then when my friend introduced me to your podcast and I listened to so many of your episodes, I knew that I could trust you. You were so generous with your knowledge, so helpful. And I read your book as well. And I felt like the level of support that you provide to anybody listening just really shows that you are in this for the right reason. So it was no question who I wanted to work with when I was ready to work with a coach to support my business. And in terms of what it has been like, it's been amazing. You have been so supportive and informative and thought provoking and encouraging. And you're also a really good accountability partner. You
Mm.
show me when I am thinking or feeling or doing things that need to be realigned, let's say. And I feel like you've helped me get very clear on where I need to actually spend my time, which as a solopreneur is essential. So looking back, I was actually listening to some of our
Mm.
recorded sessions from way back, and I could not believe the difference
Mm.
in the things I was worried about, the things I was thinking about, what we were working on together. It felt like I was seeing a version of myself from several years ago. And we were
Mm.
talking a couple months ago. Even my pipeline, I was referencing a goal that month for my pipeline that we're just 4 weeks from that recording, and my pipeline is 50% more than what that goal was. So I give that example to say when I look back, I am just amazed at the progress that you've helped me make. And I'm just amazed at this business getting to such a healthy place in a short amount of time. And I have to say, coaching was instrumental to doing that. So, I listened to your podcast a bunch. I read your book multiple times, Kindle and hard copy. And even with all of that, coaching was above and beyond what I
Mm.
expected. So if anyone out there is also an avid listener, you're doing this on your own, you're downloading the tools, you're applying them. It is so valuable, yes, but there is no replacement for coaching. And this investment in your support has paid off in dividends in my
Mm.
business already.
Well, it's been such an honor to be part of your journey. And, whether the listeners want to work with me as a coach or any other coach, leveraging a coach to help provide that external visibility and external questioning and helping to find blind spots and a thought partner to go along the way. I mean, I share this on the podcast, but I always have a coach for those same exact reasons. It makes it so much more I think more effective and more ultimately accelerate the results as well, and less lonely too.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's absolutely true.
yeah. And for you, I love the parallel, taking what you learned during that weight loss journey, the health journey, after you had your daughter, and what could we take from that learning and what you learned about yourself and what works and what doesn't, and apply it over to what might not seemingly be an apple to an apple, but there were so many thought processes and patterns that we could re-leverage to say, okay, this worked here. Let's figure out how to make it work over here in the business, which I
Mhm.
think is makes it so much easier because you've already done that one time.
Right.
Yeah,
It's so true. And if I had to find that, what is that one thread? It's all
yeah.
about taking imperfect action
Mm.
right now and consistently over time. There was, in my weight loss journey, there was not a single day where I met every goal that was a part of that health journey. Again, not a single day where I hit every target, but over time, I didn't need to still have incredible results that I hoped for. So your LinkedIn post that you might be thinking of posting, it doesn't have to be 100% ready. That client meeting that you want to have that you are just, panicking about your talking points, they don't have to be completely polished. You just have to do it anyways. And you build that momentum over time. It's the consistent action that leads to the confidence, not the confidence coming before the
Mm.
consistent action. And if I could go back in time and tell myself one thing, that's what I would say is take consistent, imperfect action and trust yourself.
Ellie, you have literally shared the playbook for launching a successful business and building up a really healthy pipeline, acquiring clients very rapidly in a new business, and the way to think about, not only the steps that you took to do that, but also the way you thought about it to create such immediate success. So thank you for your generosity in being here. Is there anything as we're wrapping up you wanted to share that we hadn't touched on yet?
Thank you so much, Melissa. I would just express my appreciation for the work that we've done together. I know this is the beginning of a long journey, I hope, if you'll have me. And
Yes.
I really encourage any listener that's considering coaching to reach out. I would also love to connect with listeners. The independent consultant community is amazing. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Ellie Holbert. And if you are a leader in the people and culture space that needs some support around engagement, team effectiveness, organizational health, or culture, please reach out to me. I would be happy to connect with you.
That's amazing. We'll put all of those links in the show notes so you can quickly find Ellie. She is an incredible person to know as a human and a business owner. So thank you again, Ellie. I'm so happy that you've been able to come here and been so generous with sharing your learnings. And we will see you soon.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Take care.
Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melisaliberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.